Welcome to Pulp Mythos. We're going to be discussing Lovecraft Country, Episode 10, the season finale. Not sure if it's the series finale. They've still not said up to this point. But before we get started and we get into this episode, I just want to say thanks for everyone who's been supporting the channel. Thanks for the subs, the upvotes, the comments. We appreciate all that. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be sticking around after Lovecraft Country. We have Fargo on Mondays. Check those out. We're going to be doing The Mandalorian, and we'll be right back here next Sunday doing The Undoing. So come check that out. A lot of other content, including scripted content, movie reviews, show reviews. We got all kind of stuff coming to the channel. So if you haven't hit the sub button, please do so now. Although some of you might be mad at us about what's about to happen. We're going to talk about this episode. I'm going to say this up front. I love the show. I enjoyed it. I want there to be a season 2, and I think I got a few ideas of how they could do it. With all that said, I felt this finale was sloppy. And I had a lot of issues with it.
I can feel you losing subscribers as you speak.
Good. I gotta look. We come here to discuss how we feel. We're not, we're not gonna bullshit you. If we like it, we like it. If we don't, we don't. But we're gonna justify our reasons. We're gonna explain. And if you have a difference of an opinion and you want to, chime in, absolutely. We love reading the comments. So do that. But yeah, that was my initial thought. Go, and then I'll jump in. And I have my notes, but it's gonna be a lot more freeform this time than usual. So yeah.
Yeah, so I want to start from the ending here.
Absolutely. I don't think we'll talk about anything but.
Okay, now I doubt this is the way anyone expected it to end. I seriously doubt that Dee coming in with a robot arm and just coldly killing Christina.
I don't know. That's I called it pretty early on. I think episode 2. I was like, you know what, this kid. Ashley Banks is going to come in and kill somebody with a vampire dog and a robot arm.
Right? Yeah, she just coldly, we
say it like that. It's sort of cool, though.
It's cool, but without context, as the ending of a season, it's weird. It's a weird way to end it, and not weird in the way you expect from the show. It's weird as in it's like you decided to lazily do a sci-fi thing. Yes, it is. It's ham-fisted. Doesn't make any sense. There was no lead up to that.
With the Dee stuff, I was confused as to Dee's relationship specifically to Christina, because I correct me if I'm wrong.
They never met.
They never had any real interactions. Yeah.
As far as I know, they've never met. I've never seen them conversate on the show. They may have walked by Dee at some point, but I've never seen those two characters talk to each other. I've never seen anyone discuss Christina with Dee, but that murder seemed very personal. And the last line that Dee says to her, you still haven't learned anything, makes it sound like it made it sound like they had a history.
Yeah, but the only explanation I have for that whole sequence is George is dead. So her dad died. So I don't know what stories she heard. Because remember, when she found out about her dad, they were kind of lying to her. They're kind of vague. And then she found out what really happened. So she found out what really happened, but I don't know how much they implicated Christina, because I don't remember them, implicating her a lot. But even if they implicated her at all, I would understand the hatred, but that could have been cleared up with one line of dialogue. She could have been like, you killed my dad. I know it was you that did it. And that would have been it. I would have been like, all right, I get it. But they didn't say anything.
Yeah, or something like
that's what you talked about,
family, to hell with you, and some kind of connection to why she would seek her out. And then why did the family leave without Dee? Well, why did they leave Christina alive to begin with? I have no issue with them killing her, but
yeah, because unless it's more time travel shit, they kind of just took off without Dee and left Dee there to finish her for some reason. They just walked off and kind of said, I guess Dee's got this, or had no concern about where Dee was in that moment, even though we saw before Dee didn't come over there of her own accord. They left her in the car. Well, and as far as her
fucking robot arm,
yeah, right.
They weren't worried about her.
They're like, she's good. That thing's got missiles and everything.
And she had a hell beast.
Yeah, true. I guess you couldn't be more protected, but they know that there's tons of those things in the area that they were at. and they didn't know whether that one would be enough to fight off the others, even though it does seem like a much stronger one than the other ones. Like, but it was just very weird that they did that. And even if she did thought, oh, she's kind of responsible for my dad's death, she has no confirmation of that. And that's not even really how it did that. Her dad is responsible for her dad's death. Because they were under.
My thing is I was just gonna say, kids, her acting irrationally wouldn't have been that far fetched for me because kids do irrational dumb shit. However, without them saying that's the reason why, that's just me assuming. The show should not have left me, and we talked about this before, like Brian, when we did other shows where I'm like, you know what? Sometimes I like when shows don't explain stuff and kind of leave me to figure it out. However, I shouldn't be confused either. This confused the shit out of me. Like, I shouldn't be trying to draw conclusions off of shit that I'm drawing lines to that are really loosely based, and that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing like, well, when you leave things like that, you at least got to give us some breadcrumbs to show, okay, well, this could have happened, this could have happened, like a series of things that could clearly make sense to give you some idea that, okay, I can draw some conclusions from this. But with this one, it just seemed rushed. It seemed rushed. It seemed like there were very few answers for what actually happened, and I don't know. It's just real sloppy.
I am confused, and anybody, like I said, if you're listening to this and you have the answer, put it in the comments. Why is it that Atticus had to die? I really don't understand. I don't understand. They had the book of names. Letty and him had already been given a bunch of information. They were getting pretty advanced in this magic thing. Could they have just been like, yeah, I'm not going? Like, I'm confused. I know he made a deal, but I don't understand. And as far as Christina, what was she gonna do at that point? Sure, you can't kill her, but you could lock her up somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are things you could have done. Why did Atticus have to die?
Well, yeah, and honestly, they could kill her because we saw at the end of the show here that it's like, okay, what they learned from the book gave them the means to actually kill her. So that was the thing they probably could have done there. When she's like, "Give me the book, I'll find another way," he could have said, "No, I have the book. In fact, let's address the other part of the ending. Like, we have the book now, so no, we're not going to do that. In fact, your magic doesn't work anymore. It's like, please leave our place of business. That could have been the end of it. Like, but so it doesn't seem like there's a reason Atticus had to die.
Well, I think that and once again, this is me drawing conclusions off of a foregone conclusion. It's not like we're on episode 6 of a show and I'm making guesses on what's going to happen in the next 3 episodes. This is done. So for me to draw conclusions that are kind of wild shouldn't be happening. But I don't know that they were planning on him dying. I don't know that they intended for him to perish. I think that all the steps they were trying to take was trying to keep it from ever happening. I think that, what Gia did was supposed to be part of the plan, but the plan went awry when she actually got to Atticus and cut his wrist. I don't think that it was ever supposed to get that far, but when, Ruby, Christina Ruby infiltrated it, she didn't kill Letty. She, threw her out and incapacitated her for a moment. But that was long enough for her to kind of have her way with Atticus, what she needed to do. And I think that that's the part that, once again, it's me guessing. Like, I'm trying to make sense of it because it doesn't make sense. So I'm trying to justify it in my own head so that I don't hate it as much. But I think that if Letty wouldn't have got incapacitated, wouldn't have got knocked out, or if she was able to kill Ruby when she kicked her down there or whatever, I think that none of this would have.
Well, I think what Brian was getting at is
reversed or whatever.
I think what Brian's trying to get at is the fact that they didn't necessarily even need to go there in the first place to execute whatever plan they had, because this isn't like a pact or something that he's bound to follow. He could have just said, "No, I'm not going. We kind of have everything we need, and we've got the book now. So, we're not going.
Saying that they have the power now, there's no reason for them to do what she wants.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I was just trying to make sense of what their plan was, although it doesn't.
It's a weird one.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know. So another gripe, like I said, this is a lot. I'm going to be bitching a lot, but Ruby, I know Spencer, you had a little bit of a disagreement. I don't like how Ruby's story ended. I think we spent a lot of time with that character. I was very invested in that character. I was very interested in where that character could go, and you kill them off screen, and I don't like it. That bothered me. It wasn't so much the sacrifice that bothered me as much as the fact that we really didn't get any of the explanation or the details of how it went down. I don't know.
Well,
To me, it felt hollow.
Well, Ruby didn't seem.
While we were talking about it, like before we started recording, I went back and watched the. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I watched the scene where Gia was tangled up with him, and she was seeing all these little visions and stuff, and they showed how Christina became Ruby. So I don't know necessarily that means she's dead. I also think that it showed to me that Ruby, because of the little speech with Ruby and Letty about how, we're family, and Ruby was just like, I don't know. She was like, I don't know that we're family. And, it was kind of on that fence of whether or not she was going to help or not. And then it shows that she did try to help. She did try to steal this, potion and all that stuff. But it shows that she's locked up somewhere. Now, do they know where the fuck she's locked up? Because the rest of the crew could go save her if they knew where she was at, what was going on, but they didn't even allude to that. But they also weren't 100% sure how the spells worked. The only person that was really in on that was Ruby. So once again, it's one of those things where you leave her story up in the air. It could go one way or the other. I don't think that she died off screen. When they showed the little sequence with Gia, they show Ruby talking to Christina, getting caught like in the little, I guess, bloodletting room. And then it shows Ruby on the table, and it shows Christina pulling something from her, but she wasn't emaciated like the other girl. The one that Ruby was pretending to be. She didn't look like her. She was just sitting at the table, and they pulled blood from her, and then they kind of cut away. So I think that Ruby still 100% could be fine. However, there's no confirmation either way, so I have no fucking clue.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure she's okay too, because she mentions that she doesn't say she needs him dead for her spell or anything. She mentions that she's got to keep him comatose. Like she mentioned that about
there can't be two of them. That kind of
right.
ruins the spell if it's one Ruby walking around with another Ruby.
Like they have to be comatose for it to work, and which begs the question too. Like I'm pretty sure Ruby isn't dead, but if Ruby's not dead, is there also a chance that God, what's his name? I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that she's pretending to be. Is he potentially alive now?
William,
yeah, is William alive? Because she's keeping William comatose. Like, does William wake up now that she doesn't have him bound magically in any way?
Once again, that could have been something that could lead to season 2. William's now the bad guy.
Yeah, William's now the bad guy and could stand to be worse, honestly, because he's got connections to their local lodges. He knows people in their area and stuff, and it could be a more villainous villain. Because one thing we complained about, Christina wasn't really that this season.
And all it would have taken was one fucking line of dialogue.
I'm about to say, I don't disagree with anything y'all have said in the last 3 minutes, but none of that was explained.
No.
So this, you know what I'm saying? So it's all like, I saw an image and I'm guessing that's what that image meant, but there may not even be a second season. And if that's the case, then I don't know.
This is the ending, and it's not a very good one.
So, okay, you brought up William. Okay, let's say William's alive. Well, let's go into the line that has the internet talking. So William. Okay, so she takes away Christina's ability to use magic, but it's more deep than that. She explains that she takes away all white people's ability worldwide to use magic. What does that mean exactly? You know what I'm saying? Like, define white people. Like, is it we're just talking skin tone, or what are we talking about? What if you're, mixed? I think that's important if you're going to lay out rules of magic. How does that play out? Now, I think there's some interesting storylines that could be told in a season 2 where this has happened. But I just don't know. They didn't go into it. They didn't dig deep enough into it. I would have went deeper into it.
Well, and I think too, like you said, they could have explained it more. It could be Letty is not this super new magician warlock that has all these abilities that were uncovered. This is all new information to her. So she's interpreting a book from a line. So who's to say she even did it right, let alone
well, I don't know at this point.
That's
I mean,
a good point.
going
but it could
into
be her
just
being
assuming
angry.
stuff. No, but I'm saying, okay, we had that scene where her and Atticus were in, like a magic realm with their ancestors. We don't know how long they were in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, because when they came out, they knew all kinds of shit. The whole Titus spell thing, like, how the fuck did they know how to do that really well? Like, they made a mistake, but point being, Letty clearly is way more powerful and knowledgeable at the end of the episode than she was at the beginning.
Yeah,
I don't disagree. I'm just saying that she could have been speaking from anger, saying, no white people ever use this again. It could not be a legit 100% true fact that that's what's happening. It could be, I say a lot of shit when I'm pissed off and I don't mean it, but I also didn't, kill somebody or curse somebody or cut out somebody's heart. And
I'll say it's a key line to the dialogue of the story. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, yeah, it's gonna decide.
It's gonna be a big deal. It's gonna be a big deal one way or the other. I'm just saying that to me, that's easy to write around should they have to.
It is in a way because it creates a different threat, especially if, like every white person on Earth loses magic and things get traced back to where they are. Now there's a different kind of threat, but the show would, to some degree, unless there's still going to be monsters and things and other, and I guess other magic users in some way, it kind of loses something if you're going to continue without that, because with Letty being, the Doctor Strange of this universe, possibly, what's the real threat now that you've taken out seemingly most opposing magic users?
Well, I just thought of this though. Remember the Lazarus Lodge where they were using black bodies?
Oh shit!
How does that work around it? Does that work around that?
I didn't think of that.
I did not think about that. Yeah, that's true.
I just thought about it. Like,
I don't.
Yeah, is that a way to work around it?
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
And now there's a worse villain, and you've that lodge is pretty bad anyway. But they didn't get rid of all them, so I guess they could wind up being a villain, and then we have the potential of William waking up and reclaiming leadership of that lodge now that the chief is gone. So I guess if there's a season 2, it'll be that, or perhaps we'll get to see why Dee is such a stone cold killer.
Well, also some of these lodges we know were using not just magic. You're right. They were using technology. They were using artifacts. They were using advanced sciences. So I guess some of that could come into play in a season 2. I know Marvel had done a story not long ago where magic users were losing the ability to use magic. And one of the things they were doing was they would take someone who could use magic and they would sort of train them to take the magic, or they would use special artifacts. So I think you could set up a villain. I think the weakness of the show was you basically, I think Larry or Spencer, one of you said, you set up an ending in which you didn't create a new villain or you didn't create a new threat. You basically wrapped it up. To me, a good show needs to end in a way where, yes, you wrap up all the, major plot lines, but you got to leave a little something teasing me for next season. And I didn't feel they did that with this.
Well, I said that too. Larry alluded to that as well. But when we talk about dialogue, poorly written. There's a lot of shows I watch. Sorry, I was chewing on something. But there's a lot of stuff that we watch. And there's a lot of shows that I watch independently because that's what I do. But I was talking about like The Office, The Good Place, Parks and Rec. There's a lot of these shows that The Good Place I'm rewatching now. And there's like a line of dialogue at the end of every season that leaves you on a cliffhanger to lead you into next season. It's just literally like one little line of dialogue, one little thing happens, and that's it. It could have been that simple to, if we're talking about the other lodge, you could have showed one of them being like the main Lazarus guy who was using all the different body parts. He could have still been fine, but one of the other guys who wasn't using the other body parts be like, dude, I can't do anything. And then, them trying to figure that out. Or like you said, William waking up. It could have been him just waking up. That wouldn't even took a line of dialogue. It could have just been a picture of him opening his eyes. Like anything.
Yeah.
But there is our villain theory is all based off of us speculating what could be a good villain next season, as opposed to knowing who it's going to be.
Yeah, and none of this is using any sort of breadcrumb that they've given us as a viewer to say that this is what will likely be the threat, or this is what my next season will likely be about. Like, you know what? I'm not going to say that because I don't know if I want to spoil a show that recent. I was going to mention the ending of Watchmen.
No, don't do that. That's too.
Yeah,
if you have not watched Watchmen, fucking watch Watchmen. It's that's how you tell a story.
Yeah, but just to say, and I'll say this much about it without saying anything. You did get a good, very much self-contained story in which, if they wanted to do another season, there's so many places you could go.
Yes.
With the end of that, and we didn't get a lot of that here. We didn't get a lot of lead in like they would legitimately have to make up something the way we just did as viewers. Like there was nothing to say, this may still be a problem, or this may still be a problem.
Going back to villain problem of a season 2, let's talk about season 1. I felt that each episode they had really good obstacles. I talked, I praised last week's episode 9. I still think that is a masterpiece of storytelling. It is a great hour of television. And that's what it kills me to say, this episode just didn't carry that weight. Christina, we get down to the end. I'm sorry, but Christina was a weak ass villain in my opinion.
Yes.
And in the end, I kept hoping there was something I was missing, or another angle, or something else that was going to happen. And it wasn't. And matter of fact, when they resurrected Titus, for a second, I was like, "Oh shit! This is that X Factor. This is going to be that thing that we weren't expecting." And then that ended in 2 seconds.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
So I don't know how did y'all feel about the overarching villain? Was in fact it was Christina.
But see, that's what I was saying before. If you had had William open his eyes, then you would have felt like, well, maybe she wasn't the real villain. But all we have to go on is that she was the villain, and she was not that great at the end. I thought leading up to the last 20 minutes of the episode, they were setting everything up great. But then when I figured out there's only 20 minutes left, I was like, how the fuck are they going to finish this?
Well, yeah, and it's the sort of thing. It didn't add up, and her motivations didn't seem villainous enough. She wants to be immortal, but there's nothing necessarily evil about that, other than the fact that she's like, okay, I want to sacrifice Atticus to do it. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's a little shitty that you want to sacrifice this person to do that. But we've kind of seen characters coldly kill each other on the show before, like Montrose, and that was just to keep a secret. That wasn't to gain immortality or anything. That was just to keep a secret or to stop his son from solving a mystery.
And she said a line where she said, I haven't worked out another way to do it. You have the book. They could have been like, yep, we found a different way to do it. No reason to sacrifice him.
There was no hint at what she was going to do with her immortality, which is where the villainous part could came in, or where the nefarious part of it could have come in. We had no real hints that it's like, okay, she's just her getting immortality is going to be a really bad thing for the rest of the world.
Well, they could have said, Attic. I hate this because I can think of better ideas. This is what's killing me about this. Why didn't, when she came in that room and it was like, well, if you got the book, let me get the book. Why didn't they say, you know what? We do have the book. We're not going to give you the book. But you know what? If you legit want to be part of this crew and you consider Atticus legit your family,
which he seems to,
let's sit down and work through this damn book together. Let's build something. Let's build a lodge of our own. Let's do our, you know what I'm saying? Like they could have had a line of dialogue where you did that. There was never a point, like you said, where Christina, you were like, ooh, Christina is fucking dangerous and evil.
Well, yeah, and they could have gone that direction, and that's the direction I thought this episode may have gone too, especially with the line when she's talking to Ruby, and Ruby says, "What if it works?" And she mentions, and she doesn't seem too happy about the idea of it, and she's like, "Well, then I will have killed the last of my family for no reason." You know, and for her to refer to Atticus that way, you know, just kind of means that, you know, perhaps she does to some degree see him as, you know, family legitimately, you know, unlike her father, and that offer to create their own lodge, that could have been a good twist, and you know, you would have seen some nefariousness or at least some selfishness in what she's doing if she rejects that offer. And it's like, okay, yes. Well, clearly you have other plans.
Yes, because how many times do we talk about it? Her, you know, say that her for the other lodges was she was unallowed to be in it. She was allowed to be considered to be in it. And now if Atticus gives her the opportunity to basically run a lodge with him, not only would she be a part of it, she could be like a leader of it. Well, yeah, that would have been a very simple thing to write in, and her be like, nope, I want this. I don't want any of your compromises. Then you could be like, oh, well, shit, this isn't good. Like, anything.
Yeah, because if it's that kind of thing, you know, and if we have that, and if we have Ruby pleading with her and trying to like sort of broker a peace, and it falls apart, then it's like, okay, yeah, she's pretty far gone, and there's no reasoning with her. You know, it didn't seem like they were there. They didn't bring the character to that place it needed to be for her to feel like a legitimate antagonist. And you know, as we mentioned before, like with the ritual and everything, one of the biggest problems is he could have, when she's like, give me the book, he could have just gone, nope. And when she walks out of there, just not show up that night. And it's like, guess what? You got to wait another year for this crap.
What? Yeah, I don't, especially when she walked by pissed and she took away the protection spell from Letty. He could have right then been like, well, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm not going.
And you know, given what's in this book, he could have been like, so, and put it right back. You know, it's just
yeah.
Yes. if that book had that much power, where they could literally conjure people from the past, conjure their spirits to help them do other spells, why the fuck couldn't they do an invulnerability spell from that book?
Well, yeah, and at that, you know,
is that what they were alluding to? Because remember, when she wakes up, the spell's there. So did they put it back on her?
I was never completely clear on how that happened.
Well, yeah. Then again, if it seems like it is what it is, and if it seems like Christina did it, then it's like, okay, that again alludes to her not exactly being a villain here. So
exactly. So then it's even more confusing as to why, you know, Dee killed her, like, because it does show in the little memories that when G is there, it shows Ruby at the top of the tower. She like mouths something, and then it looks like she snaps or something, and then it shows Letty for a second, and then it goes back into the dream state where it's, you know, she's seeing other shit. So it does make you kind of believe that Christina put the spell back on her, the invulnerability spell, and brought her to where she wouldn't die. But I'm like, but then why the fuck would she do that? Because she promised? But then she's not really a villain. So then it makes almost to where Dee's the villain. Because Dee just uses this vampire dog to wreck shop and then comes up and crushes her throat. Yeah,
and then we get scenes where, you know, in her own weird little twisted way, where it seems like she's actually trying to empathize with characters like Ruby throughout the series and understand them. And it's just like you're not showing your villain to be a villain or to be a true threat. It kind of sounds like everything else, and it feels like I say this every episode of the show. It kind of feels like the problem is once again that characters didn't sit down around a table and talk.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Christina should have been written to be more villainous. if that was the arc that you were going to give her, I think she should have been more of a villain than she was.
Because then it would have made it seem like they couldn't have that talk, like they couldn't just talk. Because it seems like they could have perhaps compromised their way out of this one.
And then, so Gia. I mean, if ever there was something just shoved into here with no real proper build, I don't understand her arc, and I don't understand how that worked at the end. I don't know. I just don't. It felt sloppy.
Gia's just part of the crew now, and she just hangs out with them for some reason. Well, just very quickly they all adapt to that.
Yes, and like we said prior to recording, it's like the last season of Game of Thrones, where it was 7 episodes, but it should have felt like it was at least one more episode, or the season finale could have went a little longer to where it explained a couple of those kind of loophole type things. Because if they would have spent 1 episode or even 10 minutes, with all of them working with Gia together, be like, hey, Gia, you're vital to this. What you bring to the table is very important. This is what we need from you. Any of that would have helped. But, this person who, they don't know her, so they don't have any, apprehension to work with her.
But they're singing and hanging out and everything later, and they've never met her.
Yes, that's the weird part, because Atticus being like, you know what, I'm really sorry. I want your help. I believe you now. So I'm like, okay, cool. But then there could have been, once again, like 2-minute scene or a little montage of them all working together to do something.
I think they needed an episode. I think you needed a solid episode. There's a great scene where she's looking around and you see the families all working together, setting the shop up, and it's like, oh, they're a family, they're together. We needed an episode of that. I think we needed a whole episode of them coming together as a family and us feeling like, they're in this together, they're going on this fight, and then it would have had a little more weight, I felt.
I think
it could have been the sort of thing like, look, we made it very clear that there's 2 characters that have, there's another character whose motivation hers overlaps with. She wants to protect Atticus, and so does Montrose. Montrose's main character arc for the second half of this has been protecting Atticus. And when Atticus snapped at her and tried to kick her out and everything, like, given what she knows about his life and everything, she should have tried to meet up with Montrose at least and warn him about what's going to happen. And, you'd at least establish a connection there with another character to some degree, instead of her just appearing out of nowhere and the rest of the family just kind of going, yep, this is Gia, I guess, and they're all buddy out of nowhere, having never met or communicated with this person. It's weird, just kind of the forced relationships. I know I gripe about this an awful lot, but it's kind of like in Guardians of the Galaxy, and I know everybody hates this opinion that I have, how by the end of that movie, these people have known each other for all of a day, but by the end of that movie, they're family.
It's a great movie, sir.
And yet Gia, they've known in over even less time, and yet all of a sudden they're all family now. Only Atticus has that connection. Atticus and to some extent Letty, because she had a conversation with Letty. But she hasn't really communicated with anyone else before that.
Another complaint, this isn't to do with the show. It's to do, I love HBO, but HBO Max, what happened? There was some odd upload issue, I'm assuming, because the episode didn't hit until 15-20 minutes after it started airing live on television, on cable. So I don't know what happened there. That's the first time.
Normally it's the opposite. Like I've got it early several times, but I do like a couple minutes in, I'll be like, "Are you able to watch it yet?" And you're like, "Yep." I'm like, "Fuck." I like restarted my Xbox. I restarted the app, logged in with like the fire, like everything to try and get it loaded, and it would not come up. And then it just all of a sudden appeared about 8:19, 8:20. I was like, "Oh, well, shit, there it is." So I figured they had something other programming on before that ran long, and it just didn't upload yet. But no, it was just late.
Yeah, yeah, and that was weird because usually, like you said, it is the other way around. Uh, but but yeah, it's odd. Usually, like you said, if anything, you'll get it early if you have HBO Max. But but yeah, it was weird that this
And it was the
episode.
season finale, which was
That's
crazy.
what made me extra mad about it. I
And
was like, "Are
and
they
there were
not going to fucking
people,
load it?"
people were uploading the reviews. Those who had gotten the early screeners, they were uploading the reviews an hour prior to the airing of the episode. So you had if reviews were already up. Um, Twitter was already going crazy. It's trending number one on Twitter. So everybody, was talking about it. And if you were relying on HBO Max, you were waiting. I was watching it through cable, so I was watching it in real time. But Larry and Spencer both texting me that they had to wait. And I went on Twitter. General consensus, it's a lot of quick little things. I think a lot of people are okay with the episode. I read a few complaints. I read several reviews, and everyone, I kept seeing a lot of like sevens, C's. So it's like, in the consensus to me seemed to be, I read two specific reviews. I read, they felt the last episode wasn't great, but they didn't let it sort of tank the whole season for them.
Yeah, and I feel the same way, and I feel those
Yeah.
are fair reviews because a 7 or a 7.5 is a fair review because the first 3/4 of this episode were pretty good. Well, I'm saying you saw the pieces fit. Like it wasn't terrible. It wasn't a letdown. Like whether you like the first part of this episode as much as you like previous episodes, it didn't really get bad until like the end. Like it wasn't bad until the end.
Yes, but that is my gripe. Is that, like you said, Brian? One of my favorite episodes was the Korea episode. I loved. I think that was episode 5 and episode 9. Like those were my favorite two episodes. And you basically negated the reason I liked 5. Like you took the whole Gia story away from me. I didn't give a shit at that point. So you took that whole thing away by ending it the way you did. To me, it took credit away from this amazing fucking season. You took away from the previous episode where you're just like, holy shit, all these people did all these things to, make sure that this book was safe. It's super important. It's super important. And then even leading up to the very end, you're like, you know what? Fuck. They were able to conjure these people back. They were able to use this book to, help create this. And then at the very end, it looked like even that didn't matter. So to me, I loved it until the last like 15 minutes. And then it just went to shit. And to me, it discredits the amazing work prior to the last 15 minutes. So unless they get a season 2 where they can kind of, I don't need them to rewrite. I just need them to explain. And I think if they were able to have a season 2, all my complaints with the end of this season will probably go away. But if this is how it ends, it will taint the rest of the season for me. However, I will still go back and probably watch episode 5 or episode 9, but it does ruin those episodes for me as of right now.
Yeah, it was a pretty disruptive ending in the sense that it does kind of change things a little bit. Like you want to like it's the sort of thing where I want to see the show continue, but only if it's going to fix what this ending fix or explain a lot of what happened towards the end of this. If we're just going to be like, oh, that happens, and we're not going to explain, D being this cold killer, and I guess you can gloss over the Christina thing, and I would just have to be fine with it if we got another season. because we just like she just was a weak villain. That's all there is to say about that.
I think they did. I mean, the thing the show did the best throughout its run, with the exception of the final episode, was shining the spotlight on racism and the horrors of what these white supremacists are doing, and just it does such a good job of showing that. And that sort of went away also towards in the end. You know what I mean? You go through so many episodes where you feel the weight of that, and then the last episode it's like it's Christine. Christina is the villain. It's like I don't know. I felt
it's like because you've already killed off the worst of the worst.
Yeah,
which is why your idea for the ending, it would have been a better one, where it's like, okay, Titus is the villain, and maybe you do kill off Christina or you stop her from doing her plans, but William's awake now and Titus is possessing William, and he's using that to control their local lodge now, and they now have all of Titus's knowledge and experience.
That would have been interesting.
Would have been more of a menacing villain than what we had.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, there's not much more I can say in terms of why I was disappointed with the final episode. I've been on here praising the show every week because I've loved it every episode. There's nothing more that frustrating for me when you love a show, you're really into it, you enjoy the characters, and then that last episode's disappointing. But like I said, that's another reason I hope there's another season. I want there to be another season because I want
that recovery.
I want the recovery. I want to be able to just sort of say, yeah, season 1 has a weak ending, but don't worry, season 2 kicks ass.
Well, it would undo my disappointment. Like, if they explained some of the shit that happened at the end of season 1 and this last episode we just watched, then I'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. There's just too many connecting pieces missing, and which they could easily correct with any one of the 97 things we said. But without those pieces, it taints this season, and that's what frustrates me the most. Is that coming up to these last 15 minutes, this was one of my favorite seasons of television. Not period, because there's a lot of shows I like, but it was up there. It was really close to one of my top HBO shows, and I watch a lot of HBO shows. And then the last 15 minutes taints the whole experience. So they could easily write that shit. They could easily gloss over some of those things by explaining them. But unless they do that, this will go down far less successful than what I had hoped.
Well, yeah, and another good example of how easy that is done without spoiling anything or saying how they did it. I just want anyone who watches this show or watches our reviews of this show to know it gets better. Westworld. Westworld is a perfect example of how you can recover from this kind of thing.
That is a good example.
Season 2, there's 3 seasons currently. Season 2 made no sense whatsoever. It was very sloppy the way they did it, and they made a lot of the same mistakes that this last episode made. But they made those mistakes for a whole season, and yet season 3 explains and makes acceptable a lot of those things you watch in season 2, to the point where I've told people I know, who maybe stopped at season 1 or maybe haven't watched the series. I often warn them. I'm like, okay, season 2 is going to be a bit rough, but once you get to season 3, you're going to be glad you watched season 2. Because it ties into so much, and because it makes those things make sense.
Yes, that's the thing, is that it's so easy to fix if they're given more time. But will they be given more time? That's my question. And
that's unknown. It is odd that we have the season finale airing and there's still not a decision by HBO. That's usually not the case. Usually we know at this point whether or not we're getting another season. So I don't know what the holdup is. The way I understand it, there were a few articles that came out earlier today with cast and crew basically saying they're up for it. They want another season, but they're waiting to see what HBO says. So maybe the season finale ratings will dictate it. I don't know. Maybe they're looking at the HBO Max numbers. Maybe they're going to wait a couple weeks. We're getting close to Halloween. Maybe they think it'll get a boost. on HBO Max around Halloween time, since there's a horror theme to it. This is all me speculating. I don't know, but clearly HBO hasn't made a decision yet, and if they, because that would change a lot of what I'm saying here. I don't think I would have bitched as much in this last 45 minutes if I knew definitively we were getting a second season, because then I would be like, well, I hate this thing or this thing bugs me, but they'll explain it next season. We don't know if we're
Exactly.
getting it next season.
But it definitely needs one, and I would want, as much as I've complained about this episode, I do want to see another season. I definitely don't want it to end like this. Like I still would overall like the show. It was an enjoyable experience. They did a lot of neat things that you don't typically see on TV, but it does need more episodes. Like, this series needs more episodes.
If I have no idea how this review is going to do on YouTube as far as downvotes, upvotes, comments, or whatever, I'll say this: if we get at least 10 upvotes, we'll do another video saying what we want in a next season, sort of a breakdown video, explaining where we want things to go. So give us 10 upvotes, we'll do that. If not, then we know you don't care about our opinion as far as this show is concerned. But I would love to do that video.
I've got a lot I can say about that.
I do too.
There's a lot of loose threads.
I have a lot of ideas and thoughts, but
lot.
We'll save that for potentially another podcast. Like I said, let us get those 10 upvotes and we will do it. Any last thoughts before I wrap this up? Because I think we've literally shredded it as much as we can. I hate that it came off that bad, because like I said, I did love the season up until the last 20 minutes. But once the credits started rolling, I was like, fuck, this is going to be a rough review. I didn't know if you guys were going to have as strong of feelings as I did. So I was like, we may be arguing the whole time. I wasn't sure. But any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
Well, I just want to say, like you said, up until the last 20 minutes or so, I really like this episode. I like the inclusion of, like the ancestral place that they created and everything. That was a neat little, like Black Panther-like touch that they added in there. I thought that was a cool little thing they could do. The inclusion of the book was neat, but I feel they went a little far with it. That they may have jumped the shark a little bit with that, with the number of things they can do. Like, they should have learned more about magic. They should have learned spells, to some degree, that maybe gave them the upper hand. But they shouldn't have so much, become better wizards or sorcerers than Christina here. They should have gotten over on her because they're just genuinely craftier. Like, some of the book should still have more mystery, and maybe it does, and it would take a second season 2 to see that.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like I said, if they would have just greenlit a second season beforehand, I would have zero gripes. I'd have a lot of fucking questions, but I wouldn't be bitching. I'd just be like, oh shit, I wonder who the bad guy is next season. Just like when we talked about The Boys, they've already released what the season 3 episode's going to be, the first episode. So we're like,
yeah.
So now we have a bunch of speculation about that. There's a lot of shows that do that, and you have this huge, like,
The Boys,
question mark. You're like, oh shit.
That's a good example of. So The Boys season 2 ended in a way that was a great wrap up of that overarching storyline, and yet teased the hell out of another season.
Again, not going to say what happens, but there's a mystery that runs through it, and you get the answer. And once you get the answer, you can look back. Unlike this, because of the way they did it, you can look back and say, "Oh, okay, I can see where that was seeded. I can see, to some degree, where I may have missed this and missed that, and where they even framed the camera certain ways to let me know that was happening." But with this ending, you can't really do that. There are seeds planted. There's hints at what was going on throughout that season, and that's what this one needed. And since we didn't get that, what this season needs is another season.
Yeah, and there's lots of shows that, I, for one, have not only never watched Breaking Bad, so please don't downvote me for saying that, but I don't ever intend to. So it's one of those things where everybody's like, if you get past the first season, it's great. I watched the first episode and I was like, not for me. And I watched a lot of shit, but it was just not something that I was willing to give time to.
I'll say
So
we're already in trouble for this review probably, and you had to shit on Breaking Bad.
I'm not shitting on it. I just said it was thing. I didn't want to give it a chance. So I'm not like it ended bad or did this. I don't know. It could be the greatest 6 seasons of whatever. I didn't give it a chance. I don't believe you, but I didn't want to give it a chance.
We're going to argue about that after this review. Like we will, and I'll tell you why.
You
can
argue to Brian about it, but I'm going to bed. However, it's one of those things where knowing that there's 6 seasons, if I wanted to go binge it now and I had a problem with the first season, I would know, well, maybe season 2 it explains XYZ. But this, I don't know that yet. So I can't positively tell somebody, hey, watch this show, it's great. I can tell them, hey, I really like these 2 episodes. These are really meaningful episodes that kind of shed some light on some shit. But I wouldn't suggest the whole season to them because it ends shitty. So if this is all you have, I'm not going to suggest it to anyone. Other than, for those reasons, like, hey, this episode really does a great job of highlighting, this. And don't watch the last episode, though, because you'll be really fucking confused. But so I really hope that HBO gives them a chance to finish out what they have story-wise without, cutting them off before they kind of clarify some shit.
Well, yeah, because it's as it is now. It's one of those series that you have to recommend with the addendum. It's like, oh, I want you to watch this. It was a great experience for me. I love this show, but I got to warn you. Like, I haven't met anyone yet that enjoys the ending. The ending's not going to be great. But other than that, I could still recommend it to people, because it's a fun ride. It's a good show. There's a lot of neat concepts in there. But man, this ending, it was really sloppy.
Yeah, but to me, that's like, all right, there's this really cool roller coaster, but at the end of it, somebody comes out and pukes on you.
Well, I mean, it's not that.
Like
that's what
great.
Lost was.
The ride was great.
It wasn't that bad.
It wasn't Lost. Lost ended like that. It's like, yeah, this is a fun ride, but
Boy, our Lost fans, Breaking Bad fans are going to be.
Well, too bad. We literally argued till sunrise when Lost ended.
That is true.
That's that's how rough that ending was.
I could do a 10-part series on that shit.
It's like
but I'm
people, well, I could. I very well could, and if anybody wants to watch that, I could do it. But
all right, we're gonna wrap this up. Like I said, give us 10 upvotes. I'll put it in the description. We'll do a what we want in season 2 video, and I'm very curious to see how this plays, because I'm not sure what the general consensus is on this episode yet. But I guess we will find out in the next day or two. As I said, Fargo review will be up tomorrow night. Look forward to that, and we'll see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.